Welcome to Shadowproof. Evidence first, noise last.
A man lies dying in a sterile hospital room, but the monitors aren't tracking his failing heart. They're detecting something else. The air thickens with the sharp, metallic scent of ozone, like the moment before a lightning strike. From his own lips, in a sleep deeper than any coma, words begin to form. Guttural, ancient sounds that crackle in the silence. The language is dead. Its last native speaker turned to dust centuries before the pyramids were even a thought. Yet here it is, being spoken by a man from New Jersey, a language that should have no place in his mind, no path to his voice. Doctors call it terminal lucidity, a final, inexplicable clarity before death. But this isn't clarity, this is an invasion, a forgotten tongue, using a dying man as its final vessel. And with his last breath, it isn't a goodbye, he whispers to his family. It's an opening. This is not a legend. This is the medical mystery of David Miller. David was a healthy man, until the night he awoke to a strange, melodic whisper in his room. The air smelled of ozone and damp earth, a scent that didn't belong. From that moment, a creeping dread took root, and his body began its inexplicable rebellion. David Miller was, by all accounts, an ordinary man, a 42-year-old history teacher, married to his college sweetheart, Sarah. He loved weekend barbecues, cheesy action films, and had one consuming passion: the mysteries of ancient civilizations. But beneath that quiet suburban life, something was beginning to stir. David was the kind of teacher who could make the Peloponnesian War feel immediate, his dry wit cutting through classroom apathy. His true passion, however, lay in the shadowed corridors of the Byzantine Empire. He consumed every text, lectured with fervor, and even convinced Sarah to spend weekends among silent relics. Little did they know, his obsession was about to bridge a gap, not between centuries, but between worlds. But he was a historian, not a linguist. He couldn't speak ancient Greek any more than he could take flight. It was a Tuesday evening, utterly unremarkable, until it wasn't. A metallic scent, like ozone, cut through the air. Then, a whisper, faint, guttural, and utterly foreign, coiled from the speakers. Sarah was recounting her day when David suddenly went silent. His breath hitched, and the air grew heavy with a metallic tang. He just stopped. He looked at me, and his eyes went wide, not with recognition, but with pure animal confusion. Then he gasped. My head, it's splitting. The air grew heavy with the metallic scent of ozone as the room seemed to tilt. A primal dread took hold, his fingers going numb against the cold, damp floorboards. What followed was a blur of terror before David collapsed. The ambulance's screaming sirens tore through the open window, a frantic wail against the silence. In the sterile, fluorescent glare of the ER, doctors delivered their grim verdict. A vessel had ruptured, unleashing a flood within the delicate architecture of his mind. The catastrophic brain hemorrhage was confirmed, a silent storm raging behind his eyes. He was rushed into emergency surgery. For 8 agonizing hours, surgeons fought to relieve the pressure, to stop the bleeding. Sarah waited, clutching a styrofoam cup, the world reduced to the swing of an operating room door. The surgery was technically a success. David was alive, but in the sterile silence of the ICU, broken only by the soft, mechanical beep of the monitor, something was profoundly wrong. The air carried the faint, metallic scent of ozone and old blood that no hospital cleaner could mask. And beneath the monitor's rhythm, a new, wet sound began. A soft, sticky rasping, like something dragging itself across the cold linoleum floor. But his mind had been shattered enough. The neurosurgeon warned Sarah about the cerebral swelling, the potential for lasting damage. When he wakes, the doctor's voice was heavy, clinical. He may not be the same man. The sterile scent of antiseptic turned to a coppery tang of dread in the mouth. He might not remember anything at all. David's eyes fluttered open, glassy, unfocused in the dim light. A thick, coppery scent of iron hung in the air as he tried to move his lips. Sarah leaned in, her hopeful whisper breaking the oppressive stillness. But only a faint, dry rasp escaped David's throat, his gaze fixed on something unseen behind her. Can you hear me? David's lips parted, and he drew a ragged breath. His voice emerged weak but clear, speaking in a strange, fluid language that seemed to carry the scent of ancient dust and ozone. Petua, Ewa, Upai, Ewa Pai, he whispered, the words hanging heavy in the damp air. Then the sound cut out, leaving only the echo of that ancient question and the palpable dread of the unknown. Sarah's expression locked into a mask of pure, uncomprehending terror. The words that poured from David's lips were not English, nor were they meaningless noise. They possessed a chilling, ancient structure, an alien syntax that felt utterly out of place in the clinical white room. A heavy, metallic scent, like ozone and cold iron, seemed to permeate the air as the specialists listened, paralyzed by the unknown. In the days that followed, David communicated only in that uncanny, flowing tongue. His mind seemed present, yet utterly imprisoned within this linguistic cave. He would gesture toward water and utter a single, alien word. Gazing out the window, he'd speak sentences full of strange cadence and haunting melody, a sound that seemed to thicken the very air. Neurologists were baffled. This wasn't a known form of aphasia. This was coherent, but inaccessible. The patient's words formed perfect linguistic structures, yet remained utterly incomprehensible. Each syllable carried the sterile scent of ozone and the faint metallic tang of fear. It was language that bypassed comprehension entirely, a perfect code with no key. Evans. It was as if his native language, English, had been completely wiped from his hard drive, and something else had been installed in its place. Sarah frantically researched on her laptop, the cold blue light casting sharp shadows across her face. Her fingers flew across the keys, a desperate search through the digital void. Then, she found it. A video of a scholar speaking reconstructed Byzantine Greek. The ancient, unfamiliar words filled the room. Her eyes widened with frantic hope as Sarah scoured the digital void, playing samples of Latin, Old English, Sanskrit, each a dead echo in the static. Nothing. Then, a lecture on late Byzantine Greek surfaced, the raw, crumbling vernacular of an empire's final, gasping breaths. The air in her study grew thick with the scent of old paper and digital ozone as she clicked play, her fingers cold and trembling. A whisper of ancient syllables began to bleed from the speakers, and a primal dread, sticky and cold, crept up her arms. She played the phrase, and David's head jerked toward the speaker. His voice cracked with emotion as he responded, the relief palpable in the sudden shift of his tone. They had found the key. What the linguist uncovered next was a chilling, impossible truth. David Miller, the Ohio history teacher, was now fluent in a dead dialect of Byzantine Greek. David had studied the language, yes, but he had never truly learned it. Trauma had rewired his brain, forcing open a deep, forgotten library of the mind, and that library became his sole, inescapable reality. This was not a miracle. This was a prison. David could now communicate, but only through his translator, Dr. Eris. The air grew heavy with the scent of ozone and antiseptic as he began to speak. Each translated word seemed to echo in the cold, sterile chamber, carrying a palpable weight. And what he said did not just surprise them. It planted a deep, primal dread in their bones. Dr. Eris's voice grew heavy with realization. Each word weighted with dread. He doesn't know Sarah. He refers to her only as the kind lady. He asks for news from Constantinople. He frets over Italian armies and crumbling city walls. In his mind, he is Theodoros, a 14th century scholar, utterly lost in time. Sarah pressed her ear against the cold wood, listening as David's voice shifted from English to ancient Greek. Through the barrier, David's words emerged, strained and foreign. The pain in my head, Eris. It began the day Hagia Sophia's dome fractured. His confession carried the scent of old stone and dust. I remember the screaming, the chaos. A falling stone must have struck me. The realization coiled in Sarah's gut. This wasn't a simple language swap. His mind had been breached by something far older. His mind had woven an entire identity, a fabricated past to rationalize his new, shattered state. To him, the cerebral hemorrhage wasn't a medical event, but a historical earthquake that had reshaped his entire world. The sterile hospital room became a makeshift infirmary in his rewritten history, smelling of antiseptic and cold, sterile air. His life with Sarah, their love, their home, every shared moment was erased, overwritten by the chilling historical fiction his own damaged consciousness had authored. Sarah stepped into the room, her presence met only by David's distant, formal smile. He spoke in ancient Greek, his voice hollow. "Good morning, madam. Is the physician with you?" Tears traced silent paths down Sarah's cheeks as she forced a smile, her heart fracturing. "Not yet, David. Soon," she whispered, the words hanging in the air like a promise she couldn't keep. From his window, David observes the modern world, a reality he navigates with careful detachment. He has memorized fragments of English, like a tourist clutching a phrase book. But his mind remains anchored elsewhere. His true thoughts, his deepest dreams, are whispered in the forgotten language of a fallen empty. This chasm of time and tongue has made him and Sarah permanent strangers, sharing a home but inhabiting different worlds. They are rebuilding a connection from nothing, across a void of 7 centuries. Final shot. David's notebook lies open. One page holds neat English vocabulary lists. On the opposite page, flowing, poetic scribbles in Byzantine Greek seem to shift slightly in the low light. Narrator. So, did speaking a dead language save David Miller? Physically, he survived. His consciousness forged a new neural pathway, a grotesque detour through the mind's dark architecture. But at what terrible cost? The air in the room grew heavy with the scent of ozone and old rot. A primal dread took hold, cold and sticky like damp earth. He survived a cerebral bleed that should have killed him. The man who survived, was he ever truly David? Or did David perish on that operating table, replaced by an echo from history, speaking in forgotten tongue? The true horror isn't the medical impossibility. It's the question that lingers in the sterile air, clinging like the scent of ozone after a storm. What, in the end, makes you, you? Are those truly your memories? Or merely the language you use to narrate your own story to yourself? The distinction feels like a cold, damp whisper against the nape of your neck, a subtle wrongness you can't quite place. A creeping dread takes root, as you question the very syntax of your past, the grammar of your identity. What language, then, does your soul truly speak?
If the proof convinced you, subscribe and open the next case.